Last month on the Movement Monday podcast, we took a deep dive into safe and unsafe landings in humans and in the animal kingdom. This week, we will be talking about leaving the ground and how it looks with an unsafe mover and safe movers. If you missed the landing episode or are new to the channel, click the link in the description to catch up on safe and unsafe landings. Let's hop right in.
Welcome to the Movement Monday podcast, brought to you by Move Pain Free. I'm your host, Joe Comer. This is your haven for learning how your body is designed to move, taking deeper dives into slow motion film analysis, and simple exercises you can use to unlock your potential and move pain free for a lifetime.
We know that there is an improper way to land to the ground. However, not only can we land improperly, but we can also leave improperly, which is going to hinder us from reaching our full potential, and it's also going to increase our risk of injury. Let's take a look at the leaving patterns in an injury-prone mover. Leaving is dictated by landing, as it is a continuation of movement. In an unsafe landing, the spine is locked up, the hip being internally rotated during landing then causes external rotation during leaving, since that's the only place that energy can go due to the internal loading. In this improper leaving pattern, the heel then releases towards the midline of the body because of the improper landing then release. To ensure proper leaving, the spine, hip, and ankle must work in a spiral manner in that order to prevent injury and allow for smooth, pain-free movement. Now that we've established what it looks like to leave the ground in an injury-prone manner, let's take a look at what it looks like to leave the ground in an injury-resistant manner. Proper movement patterns when leaving the ground begin with a proper landing behavior, which we see here with the little girl. To initiate energy transfer, the spine should be the first thing to move. In the landing, the chest is pointed in the same direction as the knee because of proper energy acceptance. As we see, the spine begins to initiate energy transfer, which results in the chest being pointed away from the loaded leg. In the meantime, the loaded leg continues to externally rotate. In other words, the column continues to open. This is followed by the column closing, or the hip and the ankle internally rotating as the foot leaves the ground to allow for a safe reset. This should occur in a smooth and fluid motion, with the chest, hip, and ankle working in unison in that respective order. It's important to note that the hip and ankle should not close on the ground, and that the foot should not spin on the ground. This improper closing of the column can lead to injury and inefficiency in movement. So it's crucial to focus on energy transfer and sequencing when leaving the ground. This behavior is apparent in the youth. Let's take a look at athletes who demonstrate proper leaving behaviors. Looking at Ed Reed, we first see the proper landing patterns. Then, to initiate energy transfer, the spine is the first to move. In the landing, the chest is pointed in the same direction as the knee because of proper energy acceptance. Then, the spine begins to initiate energy transfer, which results in the chest being pointed away from the loaded leg. In the meantime, this column continues to open, or the loaded leg continues to externally rotate through hip extension. This is followed by the column closing, or the hip and ankle closing internally as the foot leaves the ground to allow for a safe reset. This is what results in the heel moving away from the body. As you can see with Ed, the hip and the ankle do not close on the ground while the leg is loaded, and the foot does not spin on the ground. All right, looking at Simone Biles. First, we see the proper landing patterns. Then, to initiate energy transfer, the spine is the first to move. In the landing, we see the chest is pointing in the same direction as the knee because of that proper energy acceptance. And then the spine initiates energy transfer, which results in that chest pointing away from the loaded leg. In the meantime, that column continues to open, the loaded leg continues to externally rotate. This is followed by the column closing, or the hip and ankle closing internally as the foot leaves the ground to allow for a safe reset. Again, Simone Biles is not pivoting her foot on the ground, trying to force her heel away. She's not closing her hip and ankle on the ground. It is happening as a result of efficient spinal energy transfer and proper loading. Okay, looking at Michael Jordan. Again, right away, we see the proper energy acceptance. We see that chest and that knee pointing in the same direction. Then the spine begins to initiate energy transfer, which results in the chest being pointed away from the loaded leg. In the meantime, this column continues to open, the loaded leg continues to externally rotate, and then it is followed by that column closing as the foot leaves the ground. The point to hammer home here is that the heel does not move away from the body as a result of closing the column on the ground or trying to spin it away. You can't force the heel away. The heel away from the midline of the body happens as a result of proper landing and loading and spinal energy transfer. As we've established before, this pattern is innate, meaning that those animals that demonstrated the same landing patterns as humans also share the same, you guessed it, leaving patterns. Let's look. Looking at the apex predator of North America, we first see the proper landing pattern. Then, to initiate energy transfer, the spine is the first to move. The spine, being the first to move, is what results in the middle of the bear, the chest of the bear, pointing away from that loaded leg. In the meantime, this column continues to open, or the loaded leg continues to externally rotate. Then what follows is a nice and safe leaving. The paw of the bear leaves the ground similar to how the foot leaves the ground in the human. What we're not seeing the bear do is spin its paw internally, trying to get its wrist, or what would be its heel, to point away from the body. The bear is not thinking about that. What the bear is doing, it has a proper landing, it has a proper loading, and then the spine initiating that energy transfer is what results in a nice and smooth leaving. Looking at the chimp, again, right away we start with the proper landing, that proper energy acceptance, the knee, the chest being pointed in the same direction. Then the spine begins to initiate energy transfer, which results in that chest being pointed away from the loaded leg. As you can see, the loaded leg, where the column continues to open, it continues to externally rotate. And then as the chimp's foot goes to leave the ground, the hip and the ankle begin to close as it leaves the ground. Again, the chimp is not trying to force its heel away from the midline of the body. All right, on to the eagle. Right away, we see that proper landing behavior. We see the same behavior we've seen in all the other animals, and we see the same behavior that we've seen in injury-resistant humans. So then on to the leaving. What we see, the weight of the bird begins to initiate that energy transfer that results in its chest being pointed away from that loaded leg. In the meantime, that loaded leg continues to accept force. It continues to accept that energy. As a result, as its foot leaves the ground, it looks just like in a human that's moving properly and leaving the ground properly. Again, I'll say it again. The bird, the eagle, is not spinning its foot on the ground to get the heel, or what would be its heel, to move away from the midline of its body. It's not happening. It's happening naturally as a result of proper loading and proper energy transfer. Now, just like the landing patterns, leaving patterns for humans first appear in, yes, the crawling baby. Let's look at natural movement at its finest. All right, on to the crawling baby. Right away, we see proper landing behaviors. We have the knee, the chest pointing in the same direction. That hip is properly absorbing that energy. And then what we see is the spine transfer that energy to the other side. What that looks like, we have this column continuing to open, that hip continuing to absorb that energy right here, while the spine works to transfer it to the other side. Now, since the baby's pivot point is the knee, it's not focused on trying to spin the foot on the ground. That way it can get the heel away. The baby's main focus here is to properly absorb energy at that hip and then properly transfer that energy with the spine. That is the focus of the baby here. While leaving patterns are dictated by the landing pattern, improper leaving patterns are fixable. Here are 3 exercises that you can do at home with no equipment to begin fixing how you leave the ground.
Kneeling drop-ins are great for decompressing the hips and lengthening the spine.
The twist teaches us how to absorb and transfer energy efficiently. This exercise preps the nervous system for more advanced movements. Drop-in resets are great for decompressing the entire system. This exercise teaches proper hip loading and energy transfer. Drop-in resets teach the leg how to safely reset. The wall sit drop-in pulse is great for decompressing and strengthening the legs as well as the spine. This exercise organizes the hip and the ankle along with the spine. The pulse action teaches spinal energy transfer to allow us to be safer and more efficient as we land and leave the ground.
There is nothing better than learning about your body's natural movement pattern. This is the Move Pain Free training system, and I know you have goals to conquer. So I just want to thank you for stopping by and encourage you to click the link in the description for free workouts or to set up a call to discuss your movement future. Don't forget to like, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel to learn more about your body's natural movement pattern. And until next time, let's keep moving.